Welcome back to another episode of Five Drinks or Midnight. In the show, we bring the questions, guests bring the drinks, and we try to wrap up before midnight. Today, we're headed into Astoria to go to Diamond Dogs to talk to Jena Ellenwood, performer, cocktail educator, writer, bartender. But before we do, like and subscribe, hit the bells, the whistles, leave a comment if you like what we're doing. Let's get started. Thank you so much for having us at Diamond Dogs. 5 drinks or midnight. 5 drinks, 5 questions, midnight, whatever comes first. How you doing today?
Doing great. Thank you for meeting me at my favorite bar and coming to my neighborhood. We're in Astoria.
Fucking awesome. This is a beautiful, beautiful bar. This is so cool. I love everything. Just everything.
So this is my bar husband's bar. We worked together for like 10 years, and then he did all the work and opened this. And this is where I feel like home.
All right, awesome. What are we drinking first?
So I decided to do a little journey through history, since when I teach cocktail classes, I do a lot of liquid history.
Okay.
And instead of doing a liquid history of a city, which is usually something that I do, I'm doing the liquid history of myself.
Okay.
And the first ever parent-teacher conference my parents had to have was when I was in Montessori school, and I stood up very proudly and proclaimed what my father cooked during a segment called Dads Who Cook, and I stood up and said, "My dad cooks rum and coke." So they had to have a meeting, and my dad was like, "Hey, at least she knows what goes together." And I grew up in Florida, so this is a coconut rum and coke.
All right.
So cheers.
Cheers.
Didn't see that coming, did you? Right? Like when I was in college, it was coconut rum and Coke Slurpee.
Okay. You're right. This takes me back, but like also fucking hot as balls out today, so this is perfect. So this is.
It is, yeah. And I was once told that all Floridians smell of coconut, so I was kind of into that.
Oh, love it. All right. So question one, always an origin story. How'd you get into the hospitality world, and is it true it's because of Barbie?
All right. Wow. Okay. I am not quite sure how you found that out about me. So I don't remember where I said that. So it might have been. It might have been when I was 4 and answered the question accurately. Rum and Coke. But my parents. Everyone, all the little girls that grew up in the 80s, your parents usually got you some sort of like Barbie, fill in the blank, right? Whether it was the camper, the car, the dream house. I got the fucking Barbie barn. My parents gave me the Barbie soda shop.
Cool Times Barbie has a soda shop. Barbie Soda Shop, Cool Times Barbie doll, and other dolls each sold separately. You put Soda Shop together.
And it had a dispenser. It had little cups, it had little trays, and apparently I also walked around family functions and asked if anyone wanted a Rita.
All right.
So I also figured out how to make a margarita. Fast forward, my first job actually wasn't in hospitality. I worked in retail. I sold bikinis.
Right.
Florida.
Yeah.
And then when I went to college, I went to a conservatory. And I needed to get a job, so I got a job at a coffee shop. It was a tea, coffee, and martini bar.
Gotcha. All right.
In Hartford, Connecticut. And we had 100 kinds of loose leaf tea. So I really nerded out about tea.
I've been drinking green tea all goddamn day.
And coffee, and I had the big ladder, so I could go back and forth like Beauty and the Beast. And when I wound up leaving that conservatory and getting moved with my mom down the Connecticut shore, my boss had a beach bar. And I asked if I could be transferred. And he did, and they told me that they would hire me to run the margarita station. So I thought that seemed, full circle.
Full circle.
And I was like, that sounds like fun. But then I get there, and they were like, well, where's your bikini? And I was like, no. And it was not like anything fun. It was not a slushy machine. It was just like a glorified like Cuervo dispenser.
Okay.
And I was like, I'm not going to do that, but I will wait tables. And so I learned how to do that pretty quickly. I'd already kind of done that as a barista. And the bartenders were these two ex-male strippers named Chad and Rico. They had a lot of body oil. And they so much body oil, so shiny. And they were like, I was like, hey, it looks like you guys are having more fun and making more money. So what are you doing? And they're like, well, if you don't know what's in a drink, make it pink. And I was like, okay. And then they're like, and don't forget to flag it. Put a garnish on it. And I was like, yeah, I think there's more to that. So being the nerd that I am, I did what I always do. I got a bunch of books and I took a class.
Okay.
I was the valedictorian of my bartending class in Connecticut, and then no one would hire me because I was 20 and a chick. And it took a really long time. Like I got a couple jobs as a hostess. I got a job in a dive bar where they later fired me because I was taking time off to go to other colleges, which they knew up front when they hired me. But they said that I didn't know what was in all of these shots because they were a big shot bar, which was not what I studied. I studied classics, and I still don't remember what's in a sweetie snack. I had to look that up. Yeah, right? It was all these things that had like Jaeger and schnapps and like Surfer on Acid and Redheaded Slut and all of those. And I was like, okay. And when they called me, I was heading into work and they're like, don't bother coming in because you like didn't know what was in these shots and you took too much time off work. So, and I was like, but you knew that going in. And they're like, also you like said you were a barista, but you don't know how to make these things. And I was like, I was a barista. Do you know what that means? And they're like, you're a bartender. And I was like, no, it meant I made fancy coffee. Definition. So I wound up leaving and I was moving to New York anyway. Moved here, wound up, because nobody would put me behind the bar.
Okay.
Once again, in my early 20s, and a woman in New York trying to work behind bars, and it was not happening. I kept getting a lot of serving jobs.
Okay.
I wound up working for a beer bar and becoming the head beer trainer and doing a lot of their, we didn't have Instagram, they had like City Search, and I did their commercials and stuff. Okay. And then I wound up, after 4 years, and a lot of beer, working at a bar here in Astoria called the Sparrow Tavern, which is where I met Nick, who owns this bar, and became one of a 3-woman team that made the cocktails.
Okay, awesome.
Yeah, I was just texting with one of them earlier, and we did a lot of fun stuff out here. It was a big community space, and I worked for Sparrow for 10 years. Right up until shutdown, and it's actually the subject of the documentary that we did during shutdown is what happened to all of us. But the segue was through the fact that the director met his wife in that bar.
Okay.
So I became obsessed with like how the community, meets each other in bars, and also like layering of flavors outside of the rum and coke. I've always been into like
still damn good.
Right? With the coconut. And I wound up working for a couple local brands. I did a lot of stuff with New York State Spirits, and worked for a few of those brands. Opened up a tasting room out here in Queens. Ran that for a while, and then kept competing the whole time. Wound up working for Dear Irving, and in 2019 I took over doing their consumer cocktail educating.
Awesome.
Which is what I still do today. Yeah. So just kind of. It was gonna happen. Barbie made it happen. Yeah.
There we go. That's fucking awesome.
Yeah, there we go.
I think that's an awesome origin story. I don't even have any follow-up questions because you nailed all. It's fucking great.
I do not have the Barbie bar anymore. But my sister did make me a framed piece about the Barbie bar. So I do have that. It's over my tools at home, like over my tool cabinet. Okay. I have that up there.
Fuck. Yeah. So awesome. Love it. That's so cool. Well, there we go. I mean, that's question 1. It's super easy. Band-Aids ripped off. Cheers. Drink 2, question 2. What are we drinking?
All right. So this is one of the first drinks I got on the menu at Dear Irving.
Okay.
It's called the Golden Hour. And it is a really light aperitivo style, really celebrating being able to mindfully imbibe, which I've noticed is so much more important the older I get.
Yeah.
So this has Manzanilla sherry, it has some Suze, some Italicus, some Kogi Americano, and some infused olive oil.
Ooh, very nice.
Yeah.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Beautiful glass.
Right? Isn't it pretty?
Fucking awesome.
And like the color, yeah.
So awesome. Oh, that is. Yeah. That is the shit right there.
Thank you.
That's so good.
I'm pretty proud of her.
Yeah.
And I love the color. I love the concept of the golden hour.
Yeah.
Everybody looks good. It's when you have your little vermouth cocktail and hang out and maybe a snack.
I was gonna say, that's usually like a photographer kind of throwback to your sister, or like.
Yeah. So my sister is a photographer, and I have actually shot this drink with her. I created it originally for a competition,
Okay.
and then I worked on it later. So we did, the first time we ever shot this drink was in my mom's garden, and my sister did shoot it. Yeah.
Awesome.
At Golden Hour.
Good.
I forgot we did that. Are you like, it's witchcraft?
I told you we did our social stalking. Research. So yeah. All right. Question 2. You are a beast when it comes to competitions. You've been in many of them. Runner-up with the Nika Perfect 4. Our question 2 comes from your good friend Joanna, and she wants to know, what is the weirdest cocktail that you've made for competition, and what is your most favorite?
Oh, I love that. Hi, Joanna. So yeah, I've done a lot of competitions. I like the word beast. It's good.
Yeah.
I really like.
We saw that from Penny Pineapple, so that she did, but yeah.
I really like being put in a box. I think.
Okay.
I think it makes me more creative. To have some sort of limitations and then find what I can do within those parameters. I think it really makes me click, and it makes me feel more creative. Like whether it's a deadline when I'm writing or something like this. So, yep, the weirdest thing. It wasn't a cocktail, but for the Nika Perfect Serve blow bowls, so the Perfect Serve, the idea is an omakase style setup, and it used to be back in my day, now it's changed. But back in my day, it was what you would pair with their vodka would be like a serve. So the vodka should stand alone with a thing.
Okay.
And because we were going to be in Australia, and it's a Japanese company, so I did some research. Also, thank you, Jim Meehan, for guiding my research. He is a judge. We had a fun conversation that made stuff start clicking for me. And my perfect serve for that, I made a pickle with Vegemite.
All right.
And Australian honey, and I served it on the side. But that is not a weird, it's not a weird cocktail, it's a weird condiment. It kind of worked like a teriyaki sauce. The weirdest thing I've done okay. So the weirdest cocktail I've done, I have 2 outside of that. One, it only sounds weird on paper. I think it tasted really, really damn good. It was based on my great grandmother's barbecue sauce.
Okay.
Because first and foremost, I'm Italian, and I always think about what I want to eat. So a lot of my cocktails, this included, it's all culinary.
Yeah.
It comes to me from the idea of like what goes together, what am I going to cook with it, what am I going to eat with it, what am I going to eat later. So that's like how I structure stuff. And I deconstruct food and then make cocktails.
Okay. Perfect.
Just how my brain works.
Yeah.
So I made a barbecue sauce whiskey sour using my great grandmother B Mommy's barbecue sauce.
Okay.
For one of the Bloody Mary competitions I did, also weird, I suppose, I did a Bloody Maria brought to clarity made out of trash.
Okay.
So everything would have been wasted. It was all stuff that would have been thrown away. And then I put it all together and clarified it.
All right.
And it was pretty awesome. Like you could smell it before you could taste it.
Okay.
It was really like we poured it, and I remember the judges were like, "Whoa!" Like from afar. And it did win Queens. It did not win. That is not the Bloody Mary that I won national or I placed nationally for. But a trash cocktail.
Okay. Like how do you approach going into making a cocktail?
Oh, okay. Well, that's awesome because it goes into the second part of your question. What was my favorite?
Okay.
If it isn't food, I tell a story.
Okay.
And I either approach it from the food perspective, the culinary perspective, or I get real detail oriented. And I am a storyteller. I'm a writer. I'm a performer. So everything tells a story, right? And everything in our class tells a story. So I try to find things that speak to each other to tell that liquid history. So my favorite that I created was actually for the Marie Broussard Toast to Her story, which I won nationally. It was terrifying because Dale DeGroff and Julie Reiner were the judges.
Yeah.
And I just kind of fangirled for a minute.
Okay.
And then Dale was like, I think now's a good time to tell us your story. I was like, all right, okay, yeah, I'll do that. And then I placed 9th globally with it. But we were telling the story of an inspiring woman.
Okay.
And, so also food. In college, my friend Brianna, she's from California, and her grandmother is known as the Songbird of Manzanar. Her name is Mary Namora. And in college, Brianna would get shipped these umeboshi plums, pickled Japanese plums. And it's if you've ever had them?
Yep.
Okay. Do you like them?
Yes, very much.
I do too. So not everybody does, but I always have umeboshi vinegar at home.
Yep.
So Mary was in an internment camp during World War II.
Okay.
And she was a singer. That's where she met her husband. And I asked permission from their family if I could tell Mary's story. And so it was kind of based around the idea of Mary, her plums, and California.
Okay.
So I used a Californian gin, female distiller, using local California botanicals. I found out later Grandma Mary loves gin. And I used umeboshi vinegar, I used ginger bitters, I had a shiso leaf, and then I used a vermouth from Bordeaux, because we were going to be in Bordeaux for Marie Broussard, and then I used their yuzu.
Okay.
But it was all like the culinary part around it to tell her story, and it wound up being a really delicate, savory martini that I'm really proud of. And Grandma Mary was a fan, and so were Dale and Julie, so they sent me to France.
That's awesome.
And I fell down the rabbit hole of researching all the little pieces. And what's also really special about the day that I competed, it was at Tales 2019. And I didn't know this at the time, but I texted my family and then I texted my friend's family, and it was an anniversary for both of our grandfathers. It was one of their birthdays, and it was the anniversary of, I think, my grandfather's death. But I didn't know that, so it was a really cool,
That's
coming
awesome.
together
Awesome.
moment for our families. Yeah.
So, and then, do you have a favorite hype song about, before you're about to go into?
All right. So I have a playlist,
All
and
right.
I was playing it while I was getting ready.
Excellent.
It's called Fuck It Up. And I play Fuck It Up. I've played it before every competition for the last couple of years.
Okay.
And it's what I put on while I'm getting ready and doing my makeup.
All right.
It's a lot of Beyonce.
All right.
It is some Jim Wigmore. I have Royals on there. And also stuff I like to dance to. There's some Beck on there,
Perfect.
some Lizzo. But it's basically, it's my hype music.
Okay. Awesome. Love it. Are there any competitions coming up in the future that you are going to be partaking in, or?
Oh, not that I know of, but never. I did see a couple. There's an NA one that I've been looking at.
All right.
We'll see.
All right.
I don't know. I've been kind of a weird area with competitions these days because if they require you to be behind the bar full time, which some do.
Sure.
I don't qualify
Right.
anymore. But if they just want you to work at a bar, be bar adjacent, be a human who's interested in this stuff, I qualify. So it depends, yeah.
Would you have any advice for anybody that's thinking about going into competition? As somebody who, quote, a beast and seasoned pro, do you have...
Yeah, and I usually do this at competitions too. It's so important to realize when you walk in a room, I think Speed Rack does this really well. When you walk into a competition setting, The only person you are ever competing against is yourself.
Yeah.
You are not competing against the rest of the room. The rest of the room, they're there to form relationships with you. So if I don't make it to another round, like I did this in France, I didn't make it to a round, one of the competitors from Denmark needed something, take my stuff. Step in and help somebody else. If you have, like, I rolled into speed rack with snacks, and I made sure that people, I've done it at a couple competitions. I'm like, do you need a snack? You look like your little package. Just have a snack. Do you need a hug?
Yeah.
Maybe go stretch some like breathing. Have snacks. Never, hydrate is also really important. Find whatever keeps you grounded. Like I have a few friends who do a lot of other competitions who are also beasts in their own right, who have some advice as well. Jason Kilgore has some really interesting competition advice. But I, tell your story and don't be afraid. I mean, the worst they're going to say is no.
Right.
There is no end all be all in a competition. You're doing it to learn, and I wind up learning more about myself than anything else. It is a great way to be creative, to create a network, a global community, which it's done for me, to travel. And yeah, don't read the rules. Read the rules, follow the rules, know if you agree with them, what they're going to do with your image afterwards, what the prizes are, what do they own your recipe the second you post it. Like, know those things before you go in, and then just have fun. Like, I just did one for Bordiga where I did a cheese wash gin.
Okay.
Italian. I was like, I'm gonna put some pecorino in that shit. Let's throw it on there. And I also feel like, because it was a new competition, the organizers learned stuff too. And it's like, oh, hey, here's some information that might help. Like, you're gonna need to feed the people.
Yeah.
We need snacks. That's the end of it. Is we need snacks.
Yeah, that's perfect.
Snacks.
I think that's the mantra of the day: is we need snacks.
We need snacks.
Cheers.
And this goes with snacks, right?
Yes.
I liked that during my speed rack year too. I mean, Ivy is celiac, but they're always super conscious of allergens, which is also something with competitions to think about. Like I've done competitions where I've created stuff on the fly because I found out one of the judges was vegan.
Okay.
And so it's always really important to do what you did and like do a little social media deep dive research on who's going to be eating or drinking your stuff, and if they can, right? Which is also something important to think about when you're looking at judges, which is something that when I hosted a competition, I looked at. It was like, hey, are you vegan? Because this is for honey vegan, that's not going to work.
Right.
Fly, if you will. Like. Are you veg? Are you vegan? Do you have an allergy? Can you or can you not have sesame? Things that are super important. Can you have nuts?
Yeah.
So there's a lot of nuts behind the bar.
Yeah.
I'm not just talking about the coworkers. Like, you got to figure that out.
Yeah.
It's important. It's part of your plan.
Made from cashew. Yeah.
I did one. Well, cashew is technically a fruit.
Oh, really?
But people who have allergies, so if you've ever seen our cashew, you might see this when you go to South America. So I did a cachaça competition, and cashews grow in Brazil, and they're like hot pink, and it comes out like this weird little like flip at the end of this fruiting thing. They're wild looking. Look my cashew plant later.
I will, yeah, I'm intrigued.
Because I made a cashew orgeat,
Yeah.
and then served the whole drink in a scooped out dragon fruit. At the top of the dragon fruit, we hollowed out to make a jello shot. But my partner that I was competing with was nervous to use agar-agar because she never used it. So we just did jello shots, which is why I had to do on the fly.
Gotcha.
And I was like, agar's going to be fine. Like I do a lot with seaweed in my day-to-day, but she was in charge of that.
Yeah.
So we did a coconut water cachaça jello shot with sesame seeds to replicate what a dragon fruit looks like. So you have the two parts.
Yeah, that's awesome.
A lot of scooping of some dragon fruit. So much scooping, so much mess. But it was delicious. I think we got like first or second place with that. I don't know. It was the Queen's Cup, and we had it on the bar for a while.
There we go.
Yeah, we had it on the bar. It was a very proud moment.
Excellent. Well, there we go. That's question 2. Cheers.
Cheers.
Question 3, you drink 3?
All right.
What are we drinking?
We are drinking a bee's knees.
Woohoo!
This is a bee's knees with local buckwheat honey. I used to work in Old Tom Gin. years ago. And we did a lot with beehives, local beehives. We had one on the roof of the tasting room that I ran. I got to name the queen.
Okay.
Her name is Zelda,
Okay.
after Fitzgerald.
All right.
And I always loved the bee's knees cocktail. It's funny that you brought up Mika with the last question. So this is Mika Gin that I'm using as a nod to the fact that this is one of the drinks I made in the Mika Globals. I am the first American and so far only woman to place in the Mika Globals.
Oh.
No pressure. I hope that this year, last year we got another American, yay, some Death in November. But so it's from like an improv omakase, the competition.
Okay.
And I will tell you that I had blacked a lot of it out. That happens with a lot of competitions. I get up there and I'm like, I did a thing.
Yeah.
What was the thing? So
Don't remember.
I do, yeah. So I do remember from my US round, I know that I made a Suffering Bastard.
Okay.
I know that I made that. I'm pretty sure I made it for Jim Ian. And I forget what I made for Ezra Starr and Brian, the other judge. But when we did the Globals, Rogerio Ijirashi Vaz, who, if you've ever had the pleasure of meeting him, has Bar Trench in Tokyo. It is impossible to sit in front of that man and not smile. Like, he radiates like positivity, and I just love being around him. But as a judge, it was also terrifying. And he kept saying he wanted local wine. We were in Australia. So I grabbed a bottle of sparkling from the Yarra. I showed off the local honey in Australia with the gin, and this is what I made. So I thought that would be a fun part of my 3-part history.
Awesome. Cheers.
Cheers. I just got to meet a bunch of bees.
Okay.
In the, like you do, there is actually, it's called the Honey House.
Okay.
It's our local apiculturalist. He
Very
runs
nice.
Aster apiaries. But we got to do a tour of his hives out in Brooklyn, because they're in the cemetery. Yeah, so I get to meet some bees.
All right.
Yeah.
That's fucking awesome.
It's cool. My aunt has beehives in Virginia. We lovingly refer to her as my bat aunt.
Okay.
Because I got a text years ago at Irving that just, Dear Jena, I need to know what tequilas let the agave plant flower because it's better for the bats. And I'm writing a paper on bats. XO auntie. So I asked everybody. I talked to Megan Dorman. I talked to Ivy Mix. And we came up with the list. There actually is a database now for agave distillates and that are bat friendly.
Okay.
There's a whole list because I teach a mixing with Mexican spirits class and I share it with every class because I think it's really important to talk about our pollinators. But Megan was like, "How's your bat aunt?" And we just call her my bat aunt now.
That's awesome.
And I know that she'll be thrilled that I gave her a shout out. Hi, aunt man. My bat aunt, yes.
All right. Excellent.
We have many gifts in my family.
That's awesome. Love it. All right, so question 3, we call this our talking shit segment because we've had 3 drinks. We're a little bit more open and a little bit more honest with ourselves.
Should I start drinking?
No, we didn't. But as a bartender / educator, like a bartender is so much, or wears so many different hats for so many different people. Like you're a doctor, you're an educator, you're a real estate agent, you're like a meter of people. Like you bring people together, you know. Sometimes referee. Like you just said that you talked about the. You have an article coming out about dating it. Like,
I do, yeah.
Like that's one of the some good stories about that. Talk off camera.
Me too.
Yeah. But to you, what makes a good bartender?
Ooh. I mean, you are all of those things. Definitely. I think what makes a good bartender is really the ability to read people and to just kind of see what they need. I think that's why the Nika competition worked so well. It's something that I think I've kind of inherently always done. My therapist will be like, caretaker. That's like the word she yells at me a lot. She's like, I'm hearing you're a caretaker. And I was like, yes, I resonate with that.
Sure.
But it's whether someone sits at your bar and you need, you know, you're like, oh, you need a carbohydrate. You need a water.
Snack!
You need a snack. Snacks. I have done that where it's like, you don't actually need another drink. Somebody just needs to see that you're paying attention and needs like some sort of a hug. And for me, a lot of times in a bar that comes in potato form, you know, like a fried potato really does a lot.
Sure.
For me, probably melted cheese.
Sure.
All of these things,
All
really,
right,
you know,
all right.
these are good band-aids.
Okay, yeah.
And nachos are the food of the gods. But if they really are, just give me a nacho. I think being able to tell who should be next to each other, who shouldn't be next to each other. These people are going to have a great conversation, and you're going to facilitate that. What Nick and I used to do, which I think was fun, is not just your ability to like throw a party, which is what you do a lot of times, but the ability to be chill and like see what's around you and keep people entertained, but at a respectable level where you can control it, because you're also controlling the space. You're a referee, but you're also mom.
Yeah.
Like you gotta be mom, you know? And it can be really tough as somebody back there to see what's going on out here and make sure that it's okay, you know?
Yeah.
But the ability to see, hey, that table, one, they need water, this table is clearly having a fight, or they're laughing, okay, they should meet them. And I think a lot of people, when they start in the bar, they want the star shift, right? But that isn't where you actually learn what you're doing. That's where you learn how to get yourself out of the fucking weeds, right? But that's not actually where you learn how to be a bartender. I think they're in the slow shifts. They're in the shifts that are all regulars, because also when you are behind the bar and there's nobody there but your regulars, or like two of them, you're a therapist. You're not like, it's not a band-aid. That is a mental thing that you're doing. And we're working brunch. I worked brunch for 10 years. So shifts where you multitask, right? Those are 3 drinks on a table. You're dealing with hangovers, babies, mothers. Like there are 3 drinks at all times, right? I mean, I do too. I get it, right? Like I want my coffee, I want my seltzer, I want my Bloody Mary, I need these things. These are the things, and I need my things, right? And people have like lack of sleep. That is being thrown to the wolves. Friday, Saturday night, everyone's out to have a good time. Sure, you're going to get the less ice, the whatever.
Yeah.
But the day shifts where there's actually sunlight, you're figuring out how to deal with people, I think that's what makes you.
Yeah.
My favorite bartenders have always been the ones where you walk in and you just feel human.
Yeah.
You know, Joanna and I talked about that a lot over the past 4 years. Is like feeling human when you walk into a space. Which I think also why this is my favorite.
Okay.
Not just because Nick owns it and I love Nick, but I walk in here and you feel community, you feel space, you feel supported.
Yeah.
Like if you were going to be happy or sad, I've had my birthday parties in the back here. Like it just feels home.
Yeah.
Right? And that is what we are providing for people. Depending on your bar.
No, I gotcha.
Right?
No,
At Dear Irving, we also have home but elevated,
Yeah.
right? Like we don't want you to get too comfortable. Please keep your shoes on. Like
Yeah.
that is something that is,
Go.
seriously,
Especially if you're in the way back.
the amount of people that were like,
Yeah.
like
Just because it's couch doesn't mean you take off your fucking shoes.
just exactly. You know, in here you wouldn't do that, but it's like there's glass and like it's still a bar. We just make you feel comfortable and welcome and beautiful, and that is like, which I've always working for Irving and Ray's. It's an elevated thing, which is also really special because we are creating these memories for people, right? Like at Sparrow, I saw people meet on their first date.
Yeah.
I saw their babies for brunch, or I saw them I saw the whole trajectory.
Yeah.
At Irving, we don't always see their babies, but during shutdown, when I pitched the idea of us taking the cocktail classes virtual, and they were like, YJ Irving was like, I don't know if I get it. And I was like, I'm gonna make you a demo. So I did. And we went virtual. I think we were the first bar to do that. We were virtual by April. And we were able to really connect with our regulars and our guests in a way that we really haven't, because we were in their home, they weren't just in ours. And I got to see people that had like their kids run by. And they're like, we actually had our first date at Rains. We got engaged at Irving. And this is our child who's running away with this cocktail shaker. And I remember Megan was like moderating. The two of us were like, oh my god! We did a whole Valentine's Day thing, and we saw that, you know. People weren't just in the U.S. We had people tuning in from Germany. So like, we actually met at your bar.
Yeah.
And bars are. My parents met at a bar.
Yep.
My parents met at a fucking bar. So it's just like, I guess it wasn't Barbie.
It was already.
Circle of life.
Yeah.
Circle of life.
Again, this place is absolutely beautiful. I have to come back when it's open and connection. Really, really drink. But do you have like a favorite place that you, again, globally, because again, traveling everywhere, like, do you have like a favorite place?
Oh, I have a couple. And when you do come back here, get my favorite cocktail. It's the Times of Grace.
Okay.
It's my favorite on the menu here. So I have a few favorite bars globally.
Okay.
It's really funny because I've always been the barfly, which makes sense for my profession.
Yeah.
My sister never was. And when she was on a Fulbright in Norway, she wound up becoming a regular at a bar, and I went there when I was visiting her. And to have everybody turn around and yell my sister's name and not mine, I was like, what the alternate universe?
What the fuck?
You have a Cheers.
Yeah.
It's called Bar Albatross. It's in Oslo. It's great. They made me a Naked and Famous. I did a bartender's choice with them, and the first one was an aquavit sour. It was great. It had celery and cracked pepper. Delicious. And then I did a second bartender's choice, and they brought out a drink, and my sister and I both looked at it. We sipped it, and I was like, "Did you just make me a?" And they're like, "Naked and Famous." It's from, and I was like, "Oh, I know." Like, and so does my sister. So I was like, "This is amazing." All right, cool.
All right.
If I'm home in Florida, I like to go. It's a bar. It's a restaurant. So my high school friend John and his sister Kristen, they had a Thai place. It's called Zen Bistro.
Okay.
It's in Ormond Beach. And during shutdown, I kind of had a flashback to high school during this because John was like, "Hey, we got a liquor license. It's not just beer and wine anymore." And I want insight on cocktails. And I was like, I am flashing back to freshman year when you're trying to cheat off my English paper. Like, seriously, dude? Like, here you go. But I love him, and we did talk, and now they have an awesome little cocktail program. Him and his head bartender come visit me. They've actually been in a couple of photo shoots for me, which is fun. And their drinks are great. I love visiting there. And if I'm gonna go like straight, like beach vibes, back to the rum and coke, I'm gonna go to the ocean deck.
Okay.
Because like my toes are in the sand.
Gotcha.
Probably having some sort of like spiked Arnold Palmer, or is this like John Daly? It's a fish or anyway. Sure, yeah, whatever. If I like Sia Clara in Havana.
All right.
That was really fun. Although the head bartender that I became friends with is now international. He's a flair bartender.
Okay.
Johnny's Flair. Watch his stuff. It's ridiculous. He used to be in the circus. And
Okay.
now he flips balls. It's really cool.
There you go.
But I had a really great time there. In Australia, the Black Pearl.
Okay.
Or Bar Liberty. Bar Liberty is a wine bar. Their food. Oh my god, their food. But the Black Pearl, yeah, it's really fun. And they do like spicy naked calendars.
Okay.
Love their stuff. It's fun. I have one from when I was there in 2019. Bar Apricot in Paris. I haven't been yet, but I want to. And also Astoria Bar in Paris. So I need to go visit because Astoria Bar was started by one of our neighbors who used to be a regular here, and I need to make it to go to French Alex's bar.
Sounds like a really good reason to go to Paris. So
I think so. And the last time I was there, I really liked Septimes de Cobb. It's a wine bar.
Okay.
Which, so Guilty Secret, and it's not a secret, my best friends actually know this. When I travel, yes, I go to cocktail bars, but 9 times out of 10, I am drinking a wine or a beer.
Okay.
It's how I turn my brain off. And in Japan, I started doing travel guides. So during shutdown, I started working for a female-owned company called the Crafty Cask.
Okay.
And for the last 4 years, I've worked for almost exclusively female-founded businesses, including my own. And I think that is really exciting to be able to champion other women, especially women in the craft spirit sphere. So the Crafty Cask, I do a lot of their virtual events, and I also am their staff writer, and I do travel guides for them. And I did a whole guide to drinking in Japan, which was really fun because, well, it was on craft beer, and I didn't know that you really couldn't do craft beer in Japan until the 1990s. It's still illegal to homebrew, even though one of the guys has actually won the American homebrew competition, but it's illegal to homebrew, so it's wild.
How does that?
No. How does that?
That's so weird.
How did that get here? I don't even know. I had a great time. There's a bar. Ben Finish is great, but if you go upstairs, Bar Sunface, it's one of his proteges. And I wound up sitting at the bar. I was there courtesy of Nika, and it was our trip that we won in 2019. We didn't get to go until last year. But what was really beautiful about waiting, not that I wanted to wait, like there's actually video footage of me in my apartment eating expensive sushi and crying the day that I was supposed to go. I was like texting the winner, Astoria, who just moved to New York. He works at the Radio Library now. But I was texting him on WhatsApp, like, well, we're supposed to be in Japan. Like, here's the sushi. And he was like, it'll be okay. And I was like, I don't know. So they had all left to get their flights, and they left me at Bar Sunface. And I wound up talking to the bartender who's the owner. He's a Don of Tequila. But we were communicating in English, Spanish, and Japanese. And it just became this like really magical little space. That was amazing. Bar Trench, Rogerio Spot, and Bar Triad upstairs. It's all the same group. It's called Little Axe. And the guys I was with were the other Nika winners from my year and the past year. Were like, oh, I don't know. And I was like, it's a Bob Marley song. And they're like, no. And I was like, yes, it is. Like my minor when I went to the new school was in the history of reggae. So yes, I studied this. Yes, it is. And I point blank asked our host, and he was like, it's a Bob Marley song. And I was like, no shit. I felt really at home in those spaces. If you make it all the way up to Sapporo, Bar Owl and Rooster, I really had a good time up there as well.
Awesome.
Yeah. Just love traveling and drinking my way through the cities.
Well, you kind of answered another question that we did have, but Joanna also said that you Japan was life-changing for you, so now we know why, because you answered that question as well.
So I will tell you another little part about why Japan was life-changing for me. I've always wanted to go. And you've been. Yeah. So I've always wanted to go. I think it started as a kid. I was raised macrobiotic, hence the wishy plums. And I had a lot of food allergies as a kid. So a lot of being sensitive to people's issues, dietary and allergies. That's because I had to carry a lunchbox to birthday parties. Like I was not popular. I had a little lunchbox, and I went to my birthday parties, and I didn't eat meat, and I was like the freak, right? So I had all this stuff, and like I couldn't eat the meat. Wheat, citrus, pears, like there was a laundry list, right? And I've grown out of most of it, so it made me really conscious about everything, and I think that was something that really resonated with me. We were macrobiotic, and my aunt, it had to be my aunt Elaine, who I learned to cook from. Love you, Mom, but it was always it's always been my aunt is kind of the maker of all the food.
Gotcha.
The family always has been, and I picked up a lot of it from her. I think I've always loved haiku and Japanese art, and I always wanted to go. So when I finally got to go, and I took 2 weeks, and I did a lot of solo traveling, which I know freaks a lot of people out. And I'm a really good solo traveler. I think I'm okay by myself. You know, been alone this long, but I'm okay by myself. And I am traveling through Japan and having a network. I have a really good network of people that have been there that speak the language and taught me a lot. So being alone for 2 weeks, especially after the last 4 years, which I've done a lot of talking about the last 4 years, especially during the documentary. I feel like I focused on that a lot, and it was really nice to have joy and to finally have this thing that I'd been waiting for, and I felt was waiting for me. And being able to go to all of the Nika distilleries was really great too. And I was walking. So the date that I was there was the anniversary of my grandmother's death. And happens to be Cinco de Mayo. Grandma loved a good margarita. 2 sips, but Grams loved a margarita,
Yeah.
so she'd have 2 sips and be done. And the anniversary of that, I was in one of their distilleries walking by the water source that they use for the whiskeys. And I was talking to her in my head, like you do.
Yeah.
And I looked down and I found a 4-leaf clover. And I never found one until she passed, but that was always something that she found, right? She was always the 4-leaf clover finder. And I legit never found a single fucking one. And now I find them all the time. I think they're little gifts. And I sat, like, I bent over and picked it up, and I was staring at it, and I was like, I was supposed to be here. And as I'm like having this moment with myself and my grandmother, our handler from Nika, Daichi, was like, Jackson! And I was like, oh my God! And he was like, you're gonna miss the gift shop. And I was like, oh! And I'm like clutching this, weed, tearing. I was like, but I'm supposed to be here. And I was like with a pocket full of rocks that I took from my mom, because I always bring her rocks from wherever I go. And I walk into the gift shop, and the other, Hamza, he's from Prague, and he was the runner-up from that year, like, took one look at my face, and was just like, I will get you whatever you like. And like, he was like, we're just gonna share my basket. Yep, okay.
Yeah.
And I was like, and I was like, I was supposed to be here. I feel like I was supposed to be here. Yeah.
That's fucking awesome. Well, there we go. We didn't talk that much shit. That was question 3, and we were good to go. So, cheers. Oh,
cheers.
Perfect. Yeah. Question 4, drink 4. What are we drinking?
We are drinking a local Pilsner.
Woohoo!
This is from Hillsborough. I have some friends that have done some fun, like, collab beers with them. Local beer has always kind of been my jam, and that's how I travel.
Okay.
I like to try the local beer.
Okay.
I feel like that's how you really get a sense of the space.
All right.
And I mentioned I started hospitality and beer, right? Tea and beer. And I also wrote about beer for a long time. I wrote for a local blog here in Astoria. My handle was the Beer Wench.
Okay.
Beer Wench in Astoria. I wound up having to change it because there was somebody else on Twitter, another beer chick who was using the same handle, and her views are not my views, and
Gotcha.
I dropped the handle because I did not want to be associated, with stuff that she was saying. I still love local beer. I love craft beer. I'm a big proponent of women brewing. I mean, that is kind of, there's a goddess of brewing. Her name is Ninkasi. Like, get on board, people. This is what we're talking about. We're talking about civilization and the ability to live next to each other. This is how it started, And I still write about beer. I had an article due this week on German beer styles.
Okay.
Because of Oktoberfest.
There you go.
If I'm checking out a brewery, it's so funny because when I was younger, I don't know about you, but thinking about like Pilsners and lager beers, being like, oh, well, it's boring, right? It's generic. But really, it's a great way to check out a brewery because there's nowhere to hide.
Okay.
Right? So this is like a really simple stuff in theory.
Gotcha.
Right?
Okay.
So the lager beer could not exist without refrigeration. It's a German style of beer. It means to rest, right? It's a cold fermented yeast, but there's nowhere to hide.
Gotcha.
There's nothing extra, right? There's no bells and whistles. There's not hazy or crunchy or gnarly. It's simple. And I think that's also, I hate the phrase, I hate when people are like, I want to go test a bartender. Go fuck yourself.
Yeah.
But a good benchmark, right? One, check out their cocktail menu because they're proud of it. They made it.
Yeah.
And if you want to be like, what else should I order here? Do what you did in Ireland. Can I like have an old fashioned, right? If the answer is no, the answer is fucking no.
Yeah.
You know, you didn't ask for a mojito.
Yeah.
But also, like, do you see mint on a cup? Yeah.
Yeah.
But being able to do something really simple. I don't have any beer styles that I dislike. I really love brown ales, but nobody get on board. Get on board. I want brown ales and Schwartz beers. Can we get some dark lagers out of this piece? Because that is what I would be drinking.
All right.
It's light, it's crisp, it's got that malt vibe happening, and then that's what I want. But nobody's on mine. Nobody's on mine. They're like, can we have another hazy IPA?
Yeah.
They finally got into sessions, which I love because I judged a competition for Lagunitas. But I did, it was a homebrew competition. Dear God, there were some bad beers. Banana, so much banana.
Sure.
And banana and like a dunkel bite, fine. But it was a lot. And it was like 95 degrees and we were in like a hotel room with no AC. It was a lot of banana. But one thing across the board, all the judges said, this was probably, like 2011 maybe, 2010, 2011. Because I won Best Blog here in Astoria for my beer column in 2011. So that it would have been around that time that somebody would have asked me to judge. And across the board, we were like, sessions, can we stop having 8, 10, 12% beers? And don't get me wrong, I love Allagash Curio. I will, but something that's a 4% where I can like have a couple and not be on the floor, which is very indicative of like my style of bartending too.
Sure. All right, so question 4. I think one of the greatest things about you is education. I love that, like people, no, honestly, I think people that give back is absolutely amazing, and just being able to raise everybody else up. You have a class coming up on the 29th at Dear Irving. A whiskey class again. Kind of going in, you talked a little bit about it in question 1, how you kind of frame classes around city or events. I guess, when building a class, like, do you have a theme and then build off, or do you have a spirit and then build off? What's your process of building a class? Yes.
All right, so yes, I do have classes, and September I have booked for Dear Irving. I will be releasing, I did them in 3-month chunks, so October, November, and December will be released in the next couple of weeks as soon as I look at what's happening in my life. Can you plan for the drink? Great. But I can plan this, which is I'm really excited about, and you might not know about it. I am teaching a whiskey class at the Astoria Center.
Oh, nice.
It's part of a 3-part series with Robin Robinson.
Okay.
And there's a 3-part series where they're talking about whiskeys, and then I'm doing whiskey cocktails.
Okay.
Which I'm really excited about, and I got the idea. So sometimes it's just a seed, and sometimes somebody says something, and I'm like, right, you guys don't know this. Because you're probably guilty of it too. Like, it just feels second nature sometimes. Yeah. And then I remember that it isn't. And what I think is so important is to let the consumers in on what we do. Because building a more educated consumer base means we can have more fun. And I always think, like, what does my mom not get, and how can I explain it to her?
Sure.
So during shutdown, my aunt Elaine and my mom at some point had asked me about whiskey barrels, and I started talking about them as tea bags. Okay. That is something they understand. Like my family, my mom's side of the family, they're not big drinkers.
Sure.
Right? My dad's side of the family, yes. But my Connecticut half of the family, like 2 sips, can't feel my toes.
Gotcha.
Love it, but like, oh, we're good now, we're naughty. Like, that is what's happening, okay? And so they didn't get it, but they do understand tea. And my grandmother's mantra was, do you want a hot drink? So they get that.
Okay.
So I was like, well, understand barrels and the way barrel aging works, like tea bags and Brita filters, right?
Yeah.
These are 2 things that like people get, okay? So I think when you are able to reach people where they are, understand the vocabulary that they need to like get what we do, right? Whether that is like a code switch or just a word, or you change it to a recipe, you know? And what do people gravitate towards? So, which is funny because I talk about this with our booker at Dear Irving and with Megan Dorman a lot, where we're like, well, people wanted this, but nobody said it. It's like, I gave the people what they wanted, and did they want it? But they said that they wanted it, so I'm like, I am actually looking at people, and like taking a temperature. When it comes to site-specific stuff, I do liquid histories.
Okay.
I love that. I did one virtually for a university in California during shutdown. That was so much fun.
Okay.
I didn't know they were going to have a magician that showed up partway through. That was fun.
Okay.
But it was like, cool, let's talk about the liquid history of California. Let's talk about all these things and like why they're there. Let's talk about, some of the drinks that Jerry Thomas invented there. And like we didn't make it all the way to the Mai Tai, but like we got there. We went to the Moscow Mule, and like it was really cool to be able to do that. But when it comes to picking out like what I do for classes, I like to have a through line when I'm talking about it. Whether it is, let's go from the old fashioned all the way up to whatever, or let's talk about drinks made by women, which is one of my favorite things that I've created with Dear Irving, is an entire class based on recipes by women. And what I think is so exciting too, I mean, there are a lot of recipes. There's a book that just came out by Nicola Nace, so there are all these recipes that just, we don't know who to credit, right? But the ones that we do, which tend to like live in the modern classic realm, they're still here. We can tag. I can tag my contemporary. That makes me so excited to be like, oh, it's Ivy, it's Shannon, it's Leanne, it's Lynette, like it's Julie, it's Megan. Like I can do that, and it's really amazing the community that talks back. And they're like, like Alex Jump, whatever. She's like, oh my god, I forgot about that recipe. Just like this is so great, and I like to be able to have consumers, my guests, students, sure, to be able to realize there are people, right? Every step of this process, whether we're talking about whoever grew the grain that's in this beer, the distiller for our whiskey, there are people, but it's also farmers and active hands, right? And when you're able to connect to that, I think it makes this make more sense for people. And it's also validating as a career choice. Like, hey.
No, that's, you're not just, like a bartender isn't just this low level, it's a real fucking career and a real choice.
And it used to be, in other countries, it's very trade, it's specialized, right? And like for us, we don't always get to have that. It's kind of like, they just forget about us sometimes, or they think that it's a way station. Right? Like this isn't the end all. And I'm not gonna lie, I didn't think it was gonna be either. And then despite Barbie, but I like got back there and was like, oh fuck. And years ago, we took our mom on a big tour out west, and we were talking about like what we'd be in old-timey vibes, and my entire family was like, "You run the saloon." It's like I run the saloon, like that tracks. That's I would do that, but it isn't just because I like serving drinks, because I like the stories of the people. Did I answer that?
I think so. Yeah.
The random question that wasn't actually the question?
I think we're good though. I think that, well, there we go. Question 4.
All right. Cheers.
Question 5, drink 5.
Okay.
Last drink of the night.
All right.
What are we drinking?
We are drinking something from your collection.
Woo!
Which is really cool because I spent the last almost 4 years working with J.J. Corey. Louise Bon is the first ever female Irish whiskey bonder in history. And being part of that story was really, really special. So I'm excited to see what you have dug out of your collection that I have not tried.
Well, there we go. I mean, you said that, you, again, didn't have anything. And as much as I love the Gale and the Hansen, I was like, let's try to drink something else. So
I mean, I have the Gale and the Hansen. I have couple batches of Flintlock, and then I do have every one except for the most recent that I worked on. I have that at home, so I actually was part of several Bonders editions where we worked with the bar and Louise to create amazing blends. So I have the Dead Rabbit at home, I have Swift, I have Canary Clubs, which is called Songbird, really beautiful. The only one that I don't have is the one that we did for Dutch Kills, which is technically on the water right now.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
nobody has it.
Nobody has it.
But these are all things that I worked on. I've tried all of those, which are super rare. So Neve, the head of marketing, did these stories on the back. So this is Drinks by the Dram and JJ Corey. And this was filled, these are casks that were from 2002 and blended with another cask from 2006. And married with a cask of 2010 green. So it's malted green. Beautiful. All right, the Antha. I love that sound. All right, beautiful. Cheers.
Cheers.
That'll do.
That'll do.
That'll do. Trying a lot of these barrels like in the morning. When we were all in Claire, Joey and I were like, oh my god! We're like, let's rise and shine! Barrel proof whiskey!
Yeah.
Like, let's do it!
Let's drink something.
Yeah, let's do it!
Yeah.
But it's actually, I mean, for those of you that don't know, that is the best time to taste stuff. And yeah, I know that it sounds really... Do you have a hard time explaining to your parents what you do?
Yes.
When I was like, I studied with Moonshine University, and they're like, that's cute.
Yeah.
No, but like, real, it's a real thing. It's a real thing, guys.
All right. So, last question tonight comes down to the flip of the Whiskey Wednesday coin.
Woo! Flip a coin!
You can flip it, you can spin it, you can do whatever you want. The coin will give us the answer. You don't have to answer unless you so feel inclined to answer. But, question 5. I've been told that you grew up on a boat. Does that make you a pirate? So it's fucked out.
Because I didn't steal it. Although my father and uncle at some point could technically be pirates because they did commandeer a vessel when they fled military.
Okay. So, well then, you're a daughter of a pirate. So there you go.
Son of a sailor, no. Yeah, well, if you, I did mention I'm going to Connecticut, Rhode Island next week, and they do make a beer at Gray Sale called the Captain's Daughter.
There you go. Well, there we go. That's 5 questions down, 5 drinks.
And they also make a little sister.
Yeah.
Mine's in the corner, yeah.
5 questions answered, 5 drinks down. Till we can drink together again. Cheers.
Cheers. Or arr.
Arr. And thank you for having me at Diamond Dogs. It's an absolute wonderful.